You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This episode, we are covering Krampus, the American Christmas comedy horror film written and directed by Michael Dougherty and released on December 4th, 2015. And it is our third and final holiday special of our Year of the Lord 2020.
Oh, yes. Who could forget 2020? I think this is going to rank up there with so many other past years where things have happened in history. And yeah, we'll all have t-shirts that say, I survived 2020.
And all I got was this lousy t-shirt.
Yes.
Man, 2015 is when this came out. Yeah, it does not feel like it was already 5 years old. Like, I feel like I saw it more recently in the theaters than that, but time flies.
Yeah, I saw it in the theaters. I liked it, but I had forgotten a lot about it. So when I watched it again, it was kind of like, all right, so we're in the, twisted version of The Country Mouse Visits the City Mouse, forged with mayhem in Christmas season, and another film that shows us that you should listen to children.
Mom, Dad, there's a creepy snowman standing out there. Oh, it's nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Exactly. Listen to your children. Just listen to your children. They do sometimes have sage advice, even though they may be young in years. They do have sage advice for you to listen to. And since this is our Christmas episode, our first ever Christmas episode, Pake, what did you ask Santa for Christmas?
Oh, God. Wasn't expecting this question.
Of course you weren't, but I like to throw these in every once in a while.
Let's see. The ability for over this next year, in 2021, for me to start going to concerts and wrestling shows and going out and hanging out at bars with friends again. That's what I want.
That is a wonderful Christmas wish. I totally agree. It would be so wonderful to be able to go out and do the things that we were doing a year ago.
Yeah.
Really. Would be really great to get back to that. Well, I didn't ask for anything quite that extreme. Let's see. I asked for one thing for Christmas, which was a turntable, so that I could listen to records.
No, so you're just being serious. You're being real.
Yeah. But if I could make a huge wish, I would love to be able to go and photograph figure skating because it's my passion. And nice. I have not been able to since the pandemic started. Events have been canceled. So that, and I would like to return to trivia with my friends.
Yes.
So those are pretty big asks.
Yeah. Yeah, as far as actual, gifts that I've asked family and stuff for, yeah, my stuff's not as enjoyable. Mainly it's just like, oh, I need a gift card to this, record store. And maybe some new Joy-Cons for my Switch and a book. That's about it.
I think those are perfectly great things to ask for, though. Mm-hmm. I think it gets harder and harder every year for me to come up with ideas of what I want for Christmas. I'm much more into what can I get everyone else.
Yeah.
And that is not a problem for this family that we're going to talk about in a minute. They have quite an interesting Christmas, and I'm not sure if I'd want to celebrate Christmas after experiencing what they did.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite a scary, scary ride.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, I guess before we jump into it, why don't we get a little bit of your famous behind the scenes? I'll drop a synopsis, and then we will dive into the movie.
All right. That sounds great.
Cool.
So this film was filmed at Stone Street Studios in Wellington, New Zealand. Todd Casey and Zach Shield co-wrote the script with the director. The director got the idea after his friend sent him an e-card that featured Krampus, which he loved, but he received the card long before the project was even discussed. So it was like way back in the early days of the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably one of those little e-cards you can, remember.
Oh yeah, I remember those when I was younger, when I was a kid.
Yeah.
In, the 90s and like late 90s. And my uncle up in New York would send us like these little Merry Christmas like e-cards through my dad's email like every year. We always look forward to those.
Yes. That was back when cards like that were just such a new thing, and it was always cool to get them. And now there's just different ways of being able to do electronic greeting cards. And so it's still a thing, but maybe the novelty's worn off just a little bit. So this film was full of familiar faces, including Adam Scott, Toni Collette, David Koechner, and Alison Tolman. And the budget was $15 million, and the box office gross was $61.5 million. The film clocks in at about 98 minutes. And Pake, why don't you give us the synopsis of Krampus?
Synopsis I have here. When young Max and his family have an argument on Christmas, he unknowingly summons a Yuletide demon, Krampus, who is the opposite of Santa and comes not to spread joy, but to punish the non-believers. Now Max and his family must fight back against Krampus.
Ooh, that totally describes it quite well. One thing at the end of the movie that I just said out loud was this family paid the ultimate price for destroying Max's love and belief in Christmas.
Mm-hmm. Or did they?
Because I don't know.
I've got some stuff to talk about on that.
Oh,
but yeah.
All right. Well, I'm really looking forward to diving into those little pieces.
Yes.
I feel like, the whole story, though, and before we jump into our usual character analysis and dive in, the story just makes me think of, as a kid, that forced family time where at some age you just decide that being around your cousins is not what you want to do on Christmas.
Mm-hmm. Been there.
Me too. I may or may not have had to go to visit family on Christmas and not been able to take my toys with me because my cousins would break them. In my family, you got your presents on Christmas Eve so that we could go on Christmas Day to visit my mom's family. And that was an adventure, and I'm going to leave it at that.
All right, yeah. Well, I say before we get into like specific characters and stuff, I had a couple of just notes because you mentioned in the behind the scenes about the star-studded cast a little bit. So I figure, I could bring them up one by one as we go through the characters. But I think also I just kind of want to lay it out on the top and be like, holy crap, like what a cast of fun people that I love. So I'll start like Omi was played by Krista Stadler, who is an Austrian-born actress, but she's done German film and really hasn't done much of anything in the States. I don't know exactly kind of how they found her and got her, but she was great.
I'm not sure either, but I'm glad they did because I just loved her. She was probably my favorite character in the whole movie.
Yeah. And then Max is played by MJ Anthony and his incredible dimples. No, I love that kid. He's awesome. He hasn't done a whole lot either, honestly. I think he did a couple of movies and stuff, and now he's kind of living the low key life outside of acting since he's grown up a little bit, and that's totally understandable and cool, and I totally respect that. But the reason I bring him up outside of this movie is he also plays a role in another movie that I really love. He plays Jon Favreau's son in an incredible movie called Chef that I highly recommend people check out because that is a heartwarming and funny tale that I really, really love. And Jon Favreau is just incredible.
Yeah, definitely.
And then Adam Scott, Ben Wyatt from Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
I know he's done a billion other things, but like that kind of, I can just sum it up there. Like it's it's great there. Yeah. Toni Collette, who played Sarah. She's known for so much. Most namely, you can throw out, Hereditary, Knives Out, as more recent stuff, or just The Sixth Sense. She's been all over. I've also seen her in person on Broadway.
Oh, you have?
Yes. She was in like a little small, like 4-person play that I got to see on Broadway. It was her, Tracy Letts, Michael C. Hall, and Marissa Tomei, and it was Incredible.
I bet it was. I saw her in a little movie that I think was one of her first films called Muriel's Wedding.
Mm-hmm.
It was incredible, and she's just gone on to do so many wonderful things. So seeing her in this film, I had a real interesting love-hate relationship with her character at first. So we'll get into that in a little bit.
Yeah. And then we have the character of Beth, played by Stephanie LaVie Owen, who I have never seen her in anything else. So I looked through her like filmography on IMDb, and I was like, yep, haven't seen any of this, but cool. And then, you know, kind of route it, because I didn't name all the other like kids necessarily, but then, I mean, David Koechner, you mentioned, Anchorman and The Office.
Oh my goodness.
It's just so much fun. Allison Tolman, Fargo and Good Girls.
Fargo. Yep.
Like, she's so good. And then Conchata Ferrell, rest in peace. We lost her earlier this year, and she was just a great comedic actress, great timing, great personality, and so it was good. I forgot that she was in this, so when she showed up, I was like,
me too.
Oh, yay.
She was really the comedic driving force in this movie.
Because I watched,
oh my gosh,
since I have the DVD and stuff, so I watched like all the behind the scenes and deleted scenes and extended stuff and gag reels and all that stuff. I love diving into those. And yeah, they had a little like bit with Krista Sadler, who played Omi. And, you know, there was like the cast talking about each other. And she said Conchata was her favorite on set because she was just the funniest.
Aww. Well, I can imagine that when you're doing a movie like this where everything is so dark and deep and scary, that comic relief on set has to be a blessing, actually, because you get so deep into all the dark and dreary that it's good to see the lighter side of things.
Yeah.
Especially, you know, maybe in between takes. And she definitely, I think it was Aunt Dorothy, she really brought it.
Yeah.
The comedy. Oh, I forgot how funny she was in this movie.
So good. But yeah, I love how you mentioned, like, you know, the levity of them doing such a heavy things. That was the cool thing about that behind the scenes featurette was, again, like, you know, that, and then like Adam Scott and David Koechner would just sit there for long extended periods of time, just improvising and just throwing stuff back and forth at each other. And none of it made it into the movie. Some did, but not all. But like, the cast would just sit around and just enjoy a scene going on way too long because the two of them were just batting back and forth, you know, just kept going at it, would just carry a scene on way too long with their improv, and it just got funnier and funnier. So some of that was fun. They had little clips of some of that stuff. And then I guess MJ Anthony, who played Max, was like, it makes sense as the young kid of his age. He was the like jokester and the prankster on stage. He was like different crew members, he would like steal their like camera equipment and chargers and stuff, and then wrap them up as like Christmas presents and hide them all over the set.
Oh my goodness! Oh,
he was just pulling pranks on people all the time, mostly with the director's help.
Okay, so as long as he had the director's support,
it was Michael Dougherty put him up to it, because I remember one of them saying he was like, I think one of the like crew members they talked to was just like, oh yeah, MJ is the little demon spawn protege of Michael Dougherty. He just taught him all of these pranks. Now he won't stop pulling them on everybody.
Oh, that sounds like a set that I'd want to be on.
Yeah.
One where there's lots of fun to be had, even if the subject matter is really dark.
Yeah.
I think that having fun like that, it just makes everyone enjoy their time when they're working hard on a film.
Yeah. From what I understand, the really heavy and scary stuff usually behind the scenes, they try to lighten things up a lot.
Yeah, especially with kids involved, you would think.
All right, well, let's go ahead and dive in on characters and story and get through it.
Oh, goodness. So much.
And I say probably the best place to start would be the character of Max.
Yes.
He is kind of the main character that this centers around, so might as well.
Yes. I think that's a great idea. I felt like right from the opening, Max was like the crusader fighting to defend Christmas and Santa right in the Christmas pageant. And then you see in the opening his parents rushing in to stop the fight.
Which I love that opening, by the way, just having...
The craziness of commercialization of Christmas and people fighting over things and people not wanting to be there and just all of the craziness. You think about some of the toys of the past that were like really big sellers that would instigate these fights.
Mm-hmm.
And so watching that, I'm just thinking, this is why I don't shop in stores at Christmas.
Yeah, I've done everything online this year, and I don't know why I never do it that way, always, ever, forever, never, never. Like, it's just so much better.
Agreed. It's so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. So
yeah, all the Black Friday madness, and then, yeah, we get to, like, the Max is fighting some other kid at the pageant. But then you come to find out, like, yeah, you said he's like this crusader. He's like, the kid was telling all the other kids that Santa's not real, and I had to defend Santa's honor, basically.
I know. And I had to stop the movie a couple of times when things were coming up because it made me think about, when did I stop believing in Santa? Because I can't remember like any specific moment that it happened.
I can't pinpoint exactly how old, but I have exact memories of the moment. Because it was just one of those things as you get older. So I was probably 9 or 10, you know, about the same age, maybe a little younger than Max. And it was just one of those things where finally I'm just like, it was almost like, you know, calling my like dad, you know, my mom and my dad to me, and just like almost like a business kind of thing. Like, okay, we're going to lay this head on the table straight. Like, it was very much like, just tell me the truth. Like, I brought it to them. Like, they didn't have to be like, it wasn't like they, you know, like, oh, he's old enough, we should tell him. No, it was me being like, okay, give me the scoop. Like, just be honest with me.
Goodness.
Like, I was like, he's not real, is he?
Oh my gosh. And you have little brothers. Did you keep the secret away from them?
Yeah, I kept it for them for years after. Yeah. I let them figure it out on my own. I was a good big brother in that way. Like, we would even like play it up because like we would go to my grandmother's house, my grandparents' house every Christmas Eve. And so when we would drive back to my house after that, you know, all the like little like, you know, satellite towers and stuff that have the red blinking lights and stuff on them in the distance, I could always to my little brothers, oh, there's Rudolph's nose, he's coming, you better when we get home you better go straight to sleep. Like, I was a good inside man for my parents.
I bet you were. I think that comes with being the oldest, being able to assist them. For me, I was the one that put together the presents for my siblings so that they'd be ready, because no one wants to get their present, open it, and realize that it has to be assembled. Yeah. So I would take, you know, the G.I. Joe and the Mask Mountain and all of these things into my bedroom, put them all together, and then take them downstairs so they were ready the next morning. So that was my role.
I never had to do the presents, but like there was that certain coming of age once I was like 9 or 10 and I had crossed that threshold. Then I got the special treatment of like my little brothers would have to go straight to bed, but I got to sit up and watch Christmas movies and drink coffee and hot chocolate and stuff with my parents because like I didn't have a reason to go to bed early.
No, you didn't. Why am I not surprised that you did that? So I could relate to Max's love of Christmas and wanting to keep that magic alive. Because some days, I mean, wouldn't we all love to go back to the magic of Santa?
It is, as an adult, I do kind of miss some of those, like, those old traditions. Like I said, going, you know, to my grandparents' house and doing our stuff there and then going back home. And then my brothers would go to bed and then me and my mom and dad would sit up and watch movies and you know, do a little bit of stuff. And Max is that same way in this movie. He's like, I thought we were going to watch Charlie Brown and wrap our presents and do this. Like, he's like, what happened to the same stuff we've done every year? And it like is kind of crushing him to watch like reality just get in the way of the magic of Christmas for him.
Yes. I felt so bad. And then it seemed to get worse for him because his cousins came along.
Yeah, just having here, I was like, poor Max. I was like, he's such a sweethearted kid, and his cousins are just tormenting him, and his parents aren't listening to him. And I mean, his sister was like there for him the most, but even she was just kind of like, Max, just let it go. Just, you know, she's not really giving him the sympathy that he maybe needs.
I know. I feel like as the big sister, I might have gone over there and taken the letter away from them and smacked him upside the head. Because it was just so ridiculous. But I understand it's about going and keeping the peace and getting along, just, you know, biding your time till it's over. Which is very sad if you think about it, that these forced interactions of children where parents want their kids to be friends, you know, siblings want their children to be friends with each other's. But that doesn't always work because if you live in different places, things are just different. And I did love, one of my favorite things about this movie, though, was Max's relationship with his grandmother.
I loved it so much. Oh, yeah. I have that in here is that first I thought it was really interesting. We get a little bit more as the movie goes on, but I was like, the first thing, I was like, it's really interesting that they speak to each other in English and German, respectively, Max and Omi.
Yes.
Where he would talk to her in English and then she'd respond in German, but they would both understand each other. And so I was just like, you know, I assume, you know, we know like he's very close to her, so maybe he like learned it from her. But then we also do find out later on that his father also speaks German to his mother back and forth. So I'm sure it's one of those things that like his dad and his grandmother together would have taught him if he showed interest in it. And to have that connection to his grandmother, I'm sure he totally had interest in that.
Absolutely. You can tell that they are very, very close. And they speak the same language, and I'm not talking about German and English. Mm-hmm. It's just this beautiful, loving relationship that it's not about the words.
Yeah, there's a lot said between the two of them just through touch and eye contact and like a certain look or like they would give each other or when he would just walk up and grab her hand or, you know, kind of just stand close to her in certain times. Like, yeah, there's a lot of nonverbal communication that was really beautiful too.
And you could tell because of the way that she looked at him multiple times that she was most worried for him in this situation. When she realized what was happening, I think she became very, very scared for Max. Yeah. Because he's just this lovely little soul. And he hasn't had time to be tarnished by, you know, the world at that point. He's just a kid believing in Santa and wanting things to be the way that they always were. And one thing that his cousins didn't read in the letter at the table. Mm-hmm.
I have most of his letter written down here that, you know, I didn't write down the stuff that they read at the table, but then I have, you know, what was written on after that. Because they stop it like, you know, it's like, and I wish they, and then she was like, hey, he doesn't wish that we were boys. And that's where that letter picks up. It's like the stuff about his cousins and his aunt and uncle, and they've been going through problems. And he's like, and then it picks up where they didn't read from. He says, yeah, and I also wish Uncle Howard would stop wishing his daughters were boys, you know, and then, but then from there he says, he's also written, I wish everyone liked having Aunt Dorothy around more because I think she's pretty funny. And I also wish she'd stop pretending she hates hanging with us. And thanks for giving me Omi. Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly. Thanks for giving me Omi. Yeah. This is a little kid who's thought through these things. You know, his character has thought through his feelings, and this is supposed to be a special time, and he's just having his love of Christmas dragged completely from him, so he'd be miserable like everyone else. Mm-hmm. And that just broke my heart, seeing that, because you could tell he just is a sweet kid who cares about his family, but they don't show that same reciprocation, especially as cousins. And I really felt for him because he's the one who started the catalyst for him was the letter. I
kind of put it on here as like the final straw.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't the sole reason. Like I would not put this all on Max.
No.
Because I mean, his dad's like taking work calls the whole time and they're not doing their like traditional stuff and everybody's fighting and not getting along with each other. And that's what causes Max to say, I hate all of you. I wish you would leave me alone.
Yeah.
And then when he tears up the letter, it's a really heartbreaking moment. And that's, like you said, the catalyst of it.
Yeah, that takes everything to a whole new level. And Krampus heeds the call to come and have a little visit with the Ingalls family.
Yeah.
Yeah. They really were this quintessential dysfunctional family. Even before the cousins and the aunt arrived, they were already a bit dysfunctional. Like you said, Tom was taking phone calls. The mother was fussing about everything and it was being very judgmental about different things. And you just were like, God, they're not together at all. And then you see Max with Omi and it gives you hope because there's just this beautiful relationship there. But over the course of the movie, they do show signs of pulling together.
Yeah.
Which I did not think would happen because they really didn't seem to care for each other because Howard's family seemed to be living modestly. They really didn't have a lot of money, although he drove that Hummer. And so it took me back to Sarah saying something about eating mac and cheese all the time. And so in one of my notes, I actually put down, are they eating mac and cheese all the time because Howard bought a Hummer?
Right.
Because those are not cheap.
Mm-hmm. Gas guzzlers, too. So,
Yeah.
you weren't spending so much money on gas all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. But then you had Max's family who were doing quite well for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And there was just a disconnect between the two sides, the two different families. Sarah's making a fancy meal with creme brulee, and Dorothy's saying nobody wants to eat all this fancy food. And just the picking and sniping at each other.
Yeah.
That the sisters did at first.
Mm-hmm.
But then by the end, we see them coming together. I feel like they evolved throughout this whole movie into what you would think was learning a lesson. Like they were learning a lesson.
Yeah.
To appreciate each other more.
Mm-hmm.
And to listen to each other. And to love each other.
Yep. And I think they did.
I think they did.
And, yeah, I love, you're kind of stepping off of Max here a little bit, but going, yeah, just like those moments you mentioned of the family coming together. And it's usually, they kind of paired up, but I think I love those moments. And especially when I watch the extended and deleted scenes as they drew some of these out a little more and you get to see a little more of it. And so I'll take those into account, even though most people listening to this probably haven't seen the full extended ones, but I'll throw some of that stuff in. But, when Howard and Tom are talking at the window, and he's, thanks for saving me back there. And I thought you were a spineless dick all these years, and I'm sorry for that. And, they have that little conversation. And what was deleted, which, you got to make time for theatrical releases. I get it. But I wish they would have left some of these conversations in, because in the deleted version or the extended version of that scene, Howard has a little thing which is like, it's like, I know you've only viewed me as Linda's ball and chain or something like, or Linda's life sentence. And he was like, I would never have said this. He's like, no, that's what her own father said at our wedding. And he was like, and I still loved her and I still had a great time at the wedding. He's like, but I was going to prove to people that I was not going to be the loser that they thought I was going to be. And yet here I am.
Oh.
And Tom has a really good moment where he goes, no, that is not who you are. It's like, because you were there for them every time they need you. You're there every night to tuck them into bed and be there for those kids. I spend half the year in hotel rooms, in airport lounges. You are there for you are not a loser. You are a great father. And they have that connection. And that was really cool. And it's one of those things that's like, I wish they would have left that in the actual official cut of the movie, because it's so good. And there's a similar thing like that between Linda and Sarah, where they're talking about, oh, you kept mom's angel. I was like, oh, I thought you knew that. Like, no. And then, it kind of cuts off when it's just like, after she says, I figured that's what mom would have done. And they kind of smile. And that was the end of that scene. Again, the extended version was so much better. Where then Linda kind of snipes back at her. It was just like, oh, because you have to do everything perfect, don't you? And then Sarah kind of is taken aback. She's just like, no, I just pretend that I do. I'm just real good at pretending I'm doing everything perfect. It's like, because sometimes, and then so they have like this whole different opposite spectrum of complaints, where her complaint is things aren't crazy enough. She's like, you and Howard are so good. Like, you love each other so much through everything. And she was like, but with me, he's like, Tom is always away on work. He's traveling all the time. Max is always up in his room doing whatever boys do. It's like, what she says.
Whatever boys do.
And she's like, and Beth is with her boyfriend all the time. Things around here just get quiet. It's like she wishes she had more family bonding.
Wow.
And then Linda is just like, I'm 3 years younger than you, and I've managed to pop out twice as many kids. How is that? And do the math there. And then so it's like, are you jealous of me? It's like, are you jealous of my life? And they kind of realize like grass is always greener on the other side kind of thing. Yes. And they bond through that. And that was beautiful too.
Those are pieces that we needed to see, because I think I felt the connection to Sarah more later in the film because I felt she was coming around. And Linda too. Like, I felt like they both were kind of meeting in the middle. But that scene would have really helped me connect with them more. And we didn't get that opportunity because it was not in the theatrical release. It makes me want to go watch the extended version now.
Yeah. Yeah, those were great. But yeah, where were we? Is there anything more about Max? I mean, there's so much stuff that, like, through the main, like, chunk of the movie, because we talked more about the beginning. And even though he's kind of the catalyst and the main character, there's not a lot that he does through the bulk of the middle of the movie.
No, he doesn't.
Because it's really about the rest of his family learning, like you said, to love each other and come together. And so really the next thing I have on Max cuts all the way to the end, where everybody's been taken. And just like Omi was left behind as a little girl in her story, he's the one that's solely left behind here with the reminder from that bell from Krampus. He's carrying that. But little dude isn't giving up that easy.
No, and that little bauble was wrapped in his letter.
Yeah.
Like, he got it wrapped in his letter, which had to, like, hit him.
Yeah. That's when he realizes, like, oh, it's my fault. And instead of, not to throw shade on Omi or whatever, but instead of just resigning himself to, like, oh, this is what happened and it's all my fault, he takes it upon himself to go back to Krampus with his sleigh and all of this. And, hey, asshole,
Yeah, that was really ballsy.
Yeah.
So ballsy that he did that, because that was a terrifying scene. Krampus and his minions. Ugh.
Yep. And
scary. I would not have done that.
Oh, man. Yeah, and it shows that, like, the strength that Max has. And like Omi had said also in her story, like, it's about sacrifice. She had brought that up so many times. And so through that, he says, take me instead.
Yes.
It's my fault. I take back everything that I said. Yeah. So it says, I take back everything and it's my fault and just take me
instead.
And then you have this kind of moment where you're like, you see this glint in Krampus's eyes and you're like, well, maybe he's going to. And then they just laugh and throw Stevie in also. And then picks up Max and throws him in as well. But then after that, of course, he wakes up and everything seems to be back to normal. However, everything's like a little fuzzy and nice and perfect, and people aren't acting exactly how you think they would at the beginning of this movie. And so...
yeah, no, it looked way too clean.
Yeah, and so they set it up to where it's like this like facade in a snow globe. And here's where I wanted to talk about, because there are two different camps of thought on the ending of this movie. The first one, of course, is, okay, so they're trapped in hell, basically, and they're having to relive the Christmas morning that they could have had if they would have behaved correctly, if they would have had, the holiday spirit that they were supposed to. And so, with him having that bell or the bauble, like you called it, like,
yeah.
And like everybody kind of looking at it like, oh no, like they realized what had happened. It's a dark ending.
Very dark.
But then there is another camp of thought that a lot of different people have like looked into, and I like it a lot. Basically, there's another theory to the ending, that it's not an eternal hell of what they could have had, but that time actually really did reverse. Christmas morning was real, and like what happened, but they do have a memory. They all do share a memory of that. And what the snow globe represents is, because you see a bunch of them, it's like, is that how many times Krampus has done this? Or Krampus, being the shadow and opposite of Santa, does he just keep tabs on everybody through these snow globes? And the snow globe is a way he's keeping track of everybody, and that's kind of his portal into their worlds.
To see if they're gonna revert.
So maybe because of Max's choice and sacrifice, he did reverse it. And now Krampus sent him the bell as a reminder, I'm still watching you. You've learned your lesson. Do better now.
Wow. I think I preferred that.
It's a much lighter ending, and so I kind of prefer that too. And there was an alternate ending shot. I did watch the alternate ending where only Max acknowledges the bell, and there's no snow globe at all. It pans out of the house and then it ends. And so the director had that thought in mind, that everything was okay. So maybe he just kind of found a way to like cloud it, and it could be either or. So I think he might have wanted you to decide for yourself. And I'm going to pick the happier version, I think, for myself.
Me too. Me too. Because I feel like they came full circle, and they evolved throughout the movie to become the family that Max really wanted, where they cared about each other and they were opening up. Although those two girls, the twins, I don't know about them. I'm not sure they ever were going to come around.
Well, yeah, Stevie's pretty good at the end. They have some...
True.
I mean, they don't really like reconcile like their differences, but like she's putting her trust in Max to save them, even though it doesn't really work out. Like,
yeah, no.
When it's the two of them left, like
true.
She's choosing to like love and like put trust into her cousin.
Yeah, that is true. This was, it's a Christmas story. It's not Gremlins. It's not some of the other Christmas tales. But I really enjoyed watching it because, if you think about it, pandemic has been a constant thing that we've been dealing with, for 9 months now, I think. And it just, in watching it, reminded me to start thinking about the little things to be grateful for and how things can get so dysfunctional, but how if you just start talking and communicating, you can bring it back to being something, being a warm family moment.
Yeah.
And I think that that's important.
Definitely. Will you have anything else on Max and his story?
No. Other than I thought Max should have been spared, but in your version that you just told me, he was spared, so I'm down with that. Yeah. Let's just go with that.
Let's just assume that that's what they meant. Let's
just go with that.
Because from what I understand, Michael Dougherty has not like said either or. He's been very purposely quiet on the subject of like, you know what? And I think that's cool that he's just like, I'll let you decide for yourself.
I think letting people decide for themselves in some of these movies, it may piss people off because they think that it's a cop-out, but I think it's ballsy to let the audience make that decision on their own. To trust the audience to make that decision. Instead of trying to force-feed them whatever the director or writers were thinking, just leaving it up to us, I think it's gutsy, and I actually prefer it. It's nice to be able to decide in your head what happened. Yeah. Instead of trying to reconcile something that you think was not necessarily the truth. So I definitely am on board with this. And I have got to get this DVD so that I can see it, because I want to see it.
Some cool stuff. All right. So I guess I've just got the rest of the characters just kind of clumped into like two categories of like Max's immediate family that he lives with, his mom, his dad, his sister, and his grandmother. And then I have like the cousin, the aunt, uncle, cousin, like Howard, Linda, Dorothy, Jordan, Stevie, Howie, and Chrissy. Like I have them all in one clump.
Yes. I kind of have something similar. I had split them into two groups. And I feel like we've covered a lot of little things about some of the other characters. Yeah. Because some of them we didn't see very long. Beth, we only saw very briefly. Yeah. Before she goes to visit her boyfriend and doesn't make it there. And then this Jack in the Box. Oh my God. Twisted fairy tale characters. The Jack in the Box takes her. Yeah. And we never see her again. Yeah. Until the end, in the sequence at the end. So they're really, the only note I had about her is, I know she tried her best to diffuse the situation, but I wish she had done more. Yeah. Because just thinking about being a big sister, I would have wanted to do more for my little brother than what she did. But I also get this whole keep the peace and be together and bide your time till it's over. Yeah. So I get that too.
It's one of those things like, hindsight, she would have known that this kind of stuff was happening. I'm sure she would have showed a lot more love and care for her family. But I mean, who's going to expect this kind of stuff to happen? So
you don't. You don't. You definitely don't. I really do, though. What you said about Tom and Howard and Sarah and Linda coming together, the way that they came together, those pieces, I really appreciated that, because with Sarah, I just felt like she was cynical and just difficult and very, like, she wanted to have all the fancy things. And realizing who she was having for dinner, she might have wanted to really rethink that a little bit. And I wondered if she was showing off. I really just
I think there was a little bit of, even though, that moment that she has with her sister, where she's like, she says, I'm just good at pretending that I have my shit together, basically. Yeah. She puts up that wall of perfection and like, oh, look at me being the perfect, host of the party and the perfect mother and the perfect wife and the perfect, when like clearly she has her own issues. Like, Max wouldn't write in his letter, I wish my parents would fall in love again, if there wasn't clearly some kind of, distance growing in this family.
But we did get to see some closeness between Sarah and Tom.
Mm-hmm.
There were moments that they started to come together, just these brief moments where they're looking out the window together and just getting close. And you just feel that, the effect of Krampus is a positive one on the family dynamic.
Mm-hmm. Which is the purpose.
If
you go into the lore and everything, that's the purpose of Krampus is, even though, it's meant to punish,
Yeah.
And that's another thing that backs up a lot of those theories where they said that they actually were fine in the end, is because Krampus kind of is there to teach a lesson, not just mercilessly kill. It's gonna be bad. It's gonna be
yeah.
But the lesson there is taught, and so maybe it's, I hate to speak ill of Omi or whatever, but if she would have done things differently as a kid, maybe her family would be fine. Not to put that burden on a little girl, but
right.
But that's
it's
kind of what it is, yeah,
it's hard to know. I mean, she was talking about it was her whole community had become so just dissatisfied with life and the way things were and fighting. And I think in this case, I just wonder, what was it, the whole community that got taken? What we never really saw what happened to any of the neighbors or to Beth's boyfriend. We just saw.
Well, now we saw that her boyfriend's house was
ransacked.
Ransacked, and the gingerbread. It looks like he tried to fight back against one of the gingerbread men and won.
Oh my goodness!
But yeah, hoof prints in the snow by the fireplace where he had come down the same way he did when he has that face off with Omi.
Yes,
and so, so they weren't the only house.
No, so you have to wonder, what was it? The community that was on the radar? Was it really Max, or was it the community as a whole that went to hell? Who even knows? It was just really, really interesting the way that it all played out. And now that I've heard what you had to say about, alternate endings and different ideas on the ending, it just makes me rethink things so much. So my brain's already rethinking things about the ending. So I did like one thing that Tom had this really good conversation with Max where he explained what family is. People you try to be friends with even though you don't have a lot in common. Or maybe it makes us work a whole lot harder to find what we do have in common. And so you could tell that Tom wanted to believe in that. And I related to that because I do think sometimes with family that's what it's like. Yeah. So his wife is popping Xanax and he's drinking whiskey. So yeah.
Not the most chill time of year for them.
No. And I thought the holidays are supposed to be this wonderful time with family. And I think for them, it was just we have to do this like an obligation. Yeah. Because it's family. And
even before Krampus showed up, they were already battening down the hatches to survive Christmas in a different way. But
in a different way. Yeah, for sure. I had a couple of notes on Omi, just a few things. Yeah. Just her relationship with Max, which we've already talked about. But when she shares the story with the family of what happened in her hometown, and then people not really believing her, that had to have been difficult. Until, of course, the packages open and we have gingerbread men fighting and some weird jack-in-the-box slug thing that's eating people. Yeah. So many things. One of the things I did like, and I'm not going to put this in production notes, but the way that they told the story in the middle, when she was explaining her story and they did it sort of in this sad, drab cartoon, I really appreciated that a lot. Yeah. I liked it.
It was really cool. The animation style, I liked a lot.
Yeah, I liked that a lot.
And then, with the little things with Omi, I tend to agree with her on her sentiment that hot chocolate makes everything better.
It does.
That's had to make a little extra stop on my way to record tonight because I was thinking about this while watching the movie. Even though I like regular hot chocolate, dark hot chocolate too, but McDonald's, which I don't care for McDonald's usually, but they used to have this white hot chocolate hot chocolate. That I just lived for that stuff. It's so good. And then several years ago, they just stopped carrying it. They just don't do it anymore. And every year it would roll around and I was like, they don't do it. And I would get upset. So I was like looking online to see what happened to it. But then I see Starbucks is doing it now. And so I had to make a stop at Starbucks on the way to record because I was like, I got to get some white hot chocolate because I'm craving it. And it was well worth it.
Those are the things you look forward to during the Christmas season.
Yes.
And because it's getting colder outside, hot chocolate definitely is becoming a drink of choice.
Yes.
It warms you up. When I go to skating competitions to do photography, hot chocolate is something I drink quite a bit. Because you're always cold.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, I think that kind of covers the immediate family, other than I have a little note that when they're all grabbing flashlights and stuff to check in the attic for the girls, Sarah goes straight for an axe, which I thought was kind of funny.
Yes, she's getting it. She's understanding it.
Yeah. But yeah, so then other side of the family. The aunt, uncle, cousins.
Oh, goodness.
Quite a bunch of interesting bunch of people. I have in here is Howie like the definition of mouth breather?
I think so. I think so. And he is really always focused on eating. Whatever he can eat, which is how the gingerbread men.
Yeah, I was like, of course he's going to go for the cookie tied to a chain in the fireplace. That's not going to stop him.
Oh, and when he bit it and it jumped at him after. Oh, goodness. I didn't know whether to laugh or be scared because I just thought,
that scene was pretty tense, though. Yeah, where they're all trying to like pull him back down through the fireplace, and then one of the like logs gets kicked over to the presents in the tree, and I was like, that tree went up in flames really fast. So in my notes, I was like, what were in those presents? I was like, was everyone getting kerosene for Christmas? How did that?
Yeah. I wondered if was the tree real and they didn't water it, or flammable items. Yeah, asbestos. Yeah, it brought me to. I remember back when we did covered Halloween back in October. I made this creative little list of things that you should or shouldn't do. Well, I added one to that list now. Don't bring random, unexplained packages into your house.
Yeah. That helps.
You don't want a Jack-in-the-Box that eats you.
No.
A cherub-looking thing that comes down from the ceiling. A demonic teddy bear. Or gingerbread cookies that have a mind of their own.
Or an evil robot that stabs you with scissors.
Oh, the robot. Crazy. It's like a recipe for crazy. Ugh.
But yeah, I liked some of the, like, it's kind of stereotypical little stuff like these characters made up, but I thought it was fun. Like, of course, Howard has like a small arsenal in his Hummer. Lucinda, the Hummer.
Oh, R.I.P. Lucinda.
Right?
Oh my goodness. His face, he was devastated when they came out and saw that. Oh, so sad for him. I feel like, though, we have to talk about Dorothy.
Aunt Dorothy. She goes out like a badass. She doesn't even care.
She is amazing. Her quotable moments. Why are you asking me to take care of the kids? I never liked kids when I was one. And then she tells them.
She's, please. All right. We're going to learn how to make peppermint schnapps.
I just couldn't even. And they're talking about thinking there were squirrels in the attic. And she says, oh, yeah, squirrels probably playing with their nuts.
There's another little extended scene. Is like one joke that they took out, which I get it because it's a little repetitive, cut down for time. But then whenever, the family reacts to hearing Tom shooting at the snow graboid, as I call it in here.
The snow graboid.
When they hear the gunshots and everybody stops and looks up. Aunt Dorothy had a great little line that got cut where she goes, I bet those were squirrels too.
Yes. Oh, I want to hear. I have to see this. I have to. It's just too perfect. It's too perfect.
Yep. She's great. But yeah, she goes out like a badass with that like shotgun. She blasts the bear to hell and it squeaks against the wall. And
That was great.
Blast the cherub out of the air like a clay pigeon. Just pull into the wreath.
She was the best shot. They needed to just let her do it. But it's funny because when Tom and Howard were in the Hummer with the guns, Howard gives Tom Linda's gun and says, yeah, the heavy gun is Linda's. And I'm just like, is she a badass and we don't know it?
I bet she was. I bet she is.
I bet she was too. And we didn't get to see enough of it.
We got some of it when she's struggling with the bear. Like, we see her finally, she like ties her hair back, almost like slicks it back, and she was like, she's going after her daughters. She's had enough of this shit. And she goes after the Jack-in-the-Box. She stabs the bear through the eye, throws him over the little railing, which did you hear the pitched up Wilhelm scream when she threw the bear over?
Yes, I did.
I loved it.
It's like, okay.
She's like punching it in the head while it's biting her. Which, just the way they combine the comedy and terror at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, it's so fun.
It was just amazing. I even have in my notes here that Howard hitches a ride to hell.
Yeah.
And I feel like he was just going to try to find where his kids were. I mean,
one of the dark elves just like grabs the baby and just walks off with it. Like, it's pretty messed up.
Yeah. And it was Omi that said, the elves. Mm-hmm. It's like, Jesus. Crazy.
A little more warning.
Just crazy.
Yeah.
A little more warning would have been nice. Oh my goodness.
Of course, because the elves come in and they chain up Aunt Dorothy after her badass shooting spree. And then again, with like the sound effects, they tie her up and then she gets yoinked. That's the only word I get, yoinked out of the window.
Yes.
Like the whole sound effect and everything.
Yeah.
Like, okay, there she goes.
It's just crazy. It's all madness, but it all makes sense. And it's just a fun holiday movie.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Do you have anything else on any of the human characters?
No, I think we've made it through the human characters. Other than one thing I wanted to say about Stevie and Jordan, just how maniacal they were talking about Santa dying and eating his reindeer. Oh like telling these stories.
Tiny reindeer.
I'm just like, these are just, why are you doing this?
They just know how to get under Max's skin. That's all they're doing.
They do. And it was so annoying. Like, those girls. Yeah. Just a problem.
So then really what we have left to talk about is, I have, again, kind of two little sections. I have Krampus himself, and then what I have here is his minions.
Krampus was pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Really incredible. Scary. From the moment we see him with Beth, seeing him leaping on the rooftops.
Yep.
At one point in my notes that I didn't end up keeping in my notes, I wrote down, up on the rooftops, reindeer and Krampus.
Yeah.
And it just creeped me out. It was just really creepy.
Yeah, he's like howling and jumping back and forth. The hooves.
Banging.
The chains. The dead DHL delivery guy.
Yeah, frozen.
He leaves behind an adorable little friend for Beth to play with.
Yes. Yeah, no. No, none of those crazy games.
Yeah.
Not having it. You could tell, too, like, we got that big dark cloud coming over the house and the neighborhood, and the lights all go out. All the lights in the neighborhood go out, and the snowman is in the yard, and Krampus getting into the houses from banging in the chimneys, and I mean, the story of Krampus, like how they decided to like do the design, he took pictures from various postcards and illustrations that people had put together from like various years to come up with that final design.
Yeah.
And Krampus itself is a big part of Austrian and German folklore, which we've mentioned just a little bit. In Austria and Germany, they have these things called Krampus runs, where grown-up men dress up as Krampus and parade through the city streets and scare kids.
I've watched so many videos of those. It's so cool. And they do them here in the States, too, in certain places.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, because I have some like friends and acquaintances I know who've partook in those dressing up and doing all of that
Oh.
in bigger cities and stuff. I think they might do one in Dallas. Definitely not this year.
Oh my goodness.
But
No, definitely not.
But yeah.
Yeah. And the director actually too, he describes Krampus in the film as like Omi was talking about, St. Nicholas's shadow. He's not the unstoppable monster that kicks down your door and rampages and grabs you. There's something that's darkly playful about him. He's having a good time doing what he does and enjoys the cat and mouse aspect of it. And that was a quote that the director had given. And I think that's right. I mean, he does play games with them.
Yep.
He doesn't just come in and take them away. He's got his little minions that come in and play with them. It just makes me think of a cat and a mouse, how a cat plays with a mouse and plays with a mouse, plays with the mouse and then takes it.
Yep.
So I think it's very similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we get to see him in full detail with Omi staying behind to face him, which was so sad. But then we get like the lore of like the sack, like he actually puts you into the sack. Like we didn't see any of that other until like right then. But
yeah, like that wonderful song you played earlier, Krampus's sack. We might have to share that with our listeners.
Maybe. But yeah, the full deal. He's very creepy. He's got these huge horns, but like you said, he's like the shadow of Saint Nick. So, I mean, the red coat, the white beard, the long tongue, because everybody knows Santa Claus is known for Gene Simmons' tongue. No, I'm kidding. But, but yeah, it's like a dark, twisted version of Santa Claus is what he is.
Yes, it is not something that any kid would ever dream up as a positive experience. It's very creepy looking. But there were times his face reminded me of Santa. Like, just... without the tongue.
And the goat eyes.
And the goat eyes. And the hooves. Yeah. The coat reminded me of Santa.
Mainly just the coat.
The coat. You know, one of my favorite parts of the movie did not have to do with Krampus at all. Had to do with Howard being in the kitchen, facing off against the gingerbread man.
Yeah. Yeah, I have here deranged gingerbread men shooting a nail gun at you, because that's fun. That's a fun game to play.
And the last one racing at Howard with the broken candy cane, like it's gonna stab him, and then the dog eats it.
Was great.
Oh, that was great.
Yeah. Oh. So I guess we can get into kind of the minions and stuff, because I didn't have a lot other stuff about Krampus that we haven't covered. So I think we pretty much covered him, as much as like the quote unquote big bad he is in the movie. Like there's not a lot on him to go on past what he looks like and kind of his background and story, which we cover through other characters too.
Yeah.
So yeah, these minions, which we brought up a couple of them. The first one is a creepy snowman. 2 creepy snowmen. Ugh. Lots of creepy snowmen. And a couple of dark elves skittering and giggling around just to add some flavor.
The giggling. The giggling. Oh, it was crazy. I loved the gingerbread men. I think they were my favorites. And they actually had names, Lumpy, Dumpy, and Clumpy. Yeah. Were 3 of them. And they met their demise in the kitchen because Howard got real creative. After they'd shot at him with a nail gun, he starts figuring out how to stop them. And then, of course, I think the dog's name was Rosie, and she took care of the last one that was coming at him with a broken cane.
He shot something that blew up and lit them all on fire. He shot something
that blew up.
But
they're giggling and laughing.
But again, it's that comedy and the terror, because they're sitting there, they're so scary, but at the same time, they're on fires. They're just like in agony, and and it's funny almost.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
He shot something, it blew up. They were on the kitchen floor. They had broken legs and arms, and they were hopping around. And then one of them just decides, well, I'm going to just run with this broken candy cane to kill Howard. And it's just like, it just looked crazy. A homicidal cookie running at you.
Yeah. Which is fun. And then you mentioned the Jack in the Box.
Oh,
that
thing.
That might have to go down as one of the creepiest things I've ever seen in any movie. Just
that Jack in the Box. Oh my God. Eating.
Yeah.
Jordan.
Eats just whole, like a snake. And that's because it even has like
Yes.
the jaws that like unhinge like a snake, except in like 3 parts instead of 1. It's like this predator snake combination. But then it's also creepy because it's like waving and clapping its hands and like acting kind of like a clown, even to the point like I have in here. It's so creepy, but a little funny, but mainly just super creepy. The way it like eats Jordan whole, and then afterwards it like politely dabs its creepy little mouth with a napkin, like, oh,
yes,
what a treat!
And moves away and gets in the vent and runs away. Oh, yeah. And the robot with the scissors, stabby robot.
Yes.
Yeah, just a whole lot of intense, freaky Christmas toys gone wrong.
Yeah, like the creepy cherub angel doll thing with its licky, floppy little dagger tongue.
Just gross. I mean, they were just gross. You have to give those behind these effects, the creature effects, which is the ever-utilized Weta Workshop.
Yeah, so good.
From New Zealand.
Yeah, that's great, because this was... Man, they got to have such a fun cast and so much fun behind the scenes, and they got to be in New Zealand.
Yes.
Not fair.
Yeah.
Definitely. And then, yeah, I kind of mentioned lastly, we don't really know what it is, but I call it the snow graboid because it just seems fitting for this podcast. It takes, I mean, Tom, Linda, and Howard. Tom, Linda, and Sarah. They're all at the end. Yeah. And all that's left at that point is Max and Stevie. So Max can't drive a stick because they have a hybrid. And he's like 11 years old. So, there's also that.
I don't think they teach driver's ed to 11-year-olds. Not going to happen.
Not that it matters because the elves show up and take Stevie anyway. So never really had a chance there.
Not going to happen.
His parents sacrifice themselves. Go, get in the truck and go. And then they all die. And then it's like, shit, I'm a little kid. I can't drive this thing anyway. That was pointless. No.
So he gets out to go talk to Krampus, who gives him his bauble wrapped in his own letter. And then he just decides he's not going to take it. Yep. He's going to fight back. Which I think, given he was beating up that boy at the beginning of the movie, he kind of came into the movie fighting. He's going to leave the movie fighting, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's no pushover. Yeah.
No, Max is not a pushover.
But yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. The only other notes that I had was the very beginning, even before the opening. I said just unique Universal logos are fun because they have the one that was like frozen over for this movie. Because I just recently watched and covered Scott Pilgrim on another podcast, and that one's like an 8-bit intro. So Universal has fun with like their different intros and stuff. So I just had a little note of that. But
yeah.
But yeah, I think that covers it. Yay.
That is awesome.
All right, what do you have for production notes for this episode or this movie?
Okay, so I've given some of them a little bit here and there throughout the episode. So there are still some, though, that are sitting here. So I will get to them. So the staff, team, everyone, they made a point of having the film's first act to be strictly a Christmas movie before having it turn towards the horror and dark fantasy. There was an original graphic novel that was released just prior to the film's release in November by Legendary Entertainment, and it reveals, spoiler, that anyone spared by Krampus will be kept under surveillance by him through the snow globe.
Ooh. So that does lend a little bit more to that other theory.
Does.
Yeah, I'm going with that theory because I like the world where Max and his family is not dead. I like that world better. So
yes, me too. So, Weta Workshop released a number of collectibles through their online store, including statues, Krampus, the Dark Elf, and the Cherub, and a life-size prop reproduction of the Krampus bell and a collectible pin.
Are any of those available still somewhere? Because
you feel like you gotta have one, right?
I'm looking now. Those could be fun.
Yeah. So, the composer, Douglas Pipes, described his music as a collection of twisted Christmas carols with pagan thrown in, which makes sense because there were times that I swear I was hearing Silent Night when I didn't think it was Silent Night. He also incorporated the sounds of chains, bells, bones, and animal skin drums into the score and had choirs chant and whisper in different tongues. Makes perfect sense. When you listen to the movie and the music, it sounds really, like, almost perfect for what was happening. So Omi is the only person in the movie to refer to Krampus by name. Originally, the character of Omi was deaf in the first draft of the script, as opposed to German, but they switched it for the part because they wanted the cultural connection to Krampus, and they felt that her being German would give that Austria-German connection to Krampus and the lore. So many of good old Krampus minions are also real Christmas winter folk figures in European cultures, such as the Yule goat in Scandinavia. The creatures that have Icelandic names are named after the Icelandic Yule lads, who are said to visit homes each of the 12 nights before Christmas. Do not want a visit from them. Thank you very much. The film's Krampus is intentionally designed in its shadowed and cowled face to resemble death. It is wearing a Santa Claus-like mask also. And here is a fun little tidbit to end on. 2 of the gingerbread men are voiced by Seth Green and Justin Rowland, who is and does the voices of Rick and Morty. So that is pretty much what I have.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, then we get to come to our quotes section, which is fun. We've been throwing some in throughout the recording, but I've saved the ones for here for now.
I'm already laughing because I can't wait. You always pick the funny quotes.
I do.
And I picked 1 or 2, maybe 3 funny quotes.
There's one that I picked that's not funny, but it's real quick. But yeah, everything else is. Yeah, I like the funny stuff.
All right. Well, so when Omi and Max are wrapping presents in the kitchen and Max asks her if she believes in Santa, Omi responds with, "Naturally, but I also believe St. Nicholas is what you make of him. That to believe in him is to believe in the true spirit of the holiday, the spirit of giving, of sacrifice." Then she gets this haunted look on her face, and then she says, "I also believe in dessert before dinner." So, and the next one, after arriving at the Ingalls home and viewing the dining room decorations, Aunt Dorothy says, "Lord Almighty, looks like Martha Stewart threw up in here." Yes. That is our good old Aunt Dorothy. And then once Linda has come in the door, Aunt Dorothy's out of earshot. Sarah responds to Linda's surprise of bringing Aunt Dorothy with, "A holiday roast is a surprise. Hemorrhoids are a surprise. She is a goddamn nightmare. What were you thinking?" Loved it. And then I think my favorite quotes of the movie have to be this one where Linda is talking about going to get Jordan, and she's having this conversation with Howard. Howard says to her, "Linda, what are we dealing with? What'd you see up there?" Linda says, "You don't want to know, sweetheart." And Howard responds with, "Honey, I just got my ass kicked by a bunch of Christmas cookies, so trust me when I say I can take it." So what did you have, Pake? I'm sure already that they're hilarious.
Yeah, I've just got a few because with movies like this, I get bad about, like, I have quotes from, like, maybe, like, the first half of the movie, and then I stop thinking about quotes because I'm so into it at that point. So everything's from, like, the first half, and I just have a few. But the ones that I liked, I'll start with just, like, the more serious one, just because it was very, like, menacing, but also, like, drives up a good point, is just Omi's real simple, just keep the fire hot. I thought that was really cool. But then the funny ones that I have, first is Tom, when the other family first gets there, Howard and Linda and them get there. Sorry, wasn't there another child? Because they had left baby Chrissy just in the truck. Oh, yeah. Another one that's just a little weird throwaway line is Sarah and Tom are standing, kind of looking out the window. It's like, well, you know, maybe we should check with the other neighbors, go across the street and see what the neighbors think. And it's like, well, they're in Hawaii and they did this and this. And then the coach says, and the Cartwright stopped talking to us after Max's noodle incident. To which Tom goes, his what? And then Max just gives this like weird little smirk. And then that's the end of that. So then I have here, I was like, do I want to know about this noodle incident? I kind of want to know about the noodle incident. I probably don't want to hear about the noodle incident.
No.
What noodle? I don't know.
No.
I don't want to know. Keep it to yourself, Max. I'm good.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was like a weird throwaway line that was really funny just for its absurdity of like, what? You know what? I'm probably better off not knowing.
It's probably better that you don't. Yeah.
And
it might change your opinion.
Yeah, right. And then the last one I have, of course, is Omi is speaking German again after like Jordan and Stevie kind of ask like what's going on. And she's speaking to him in German, and they look at Max for an answer, and he's like, I don't know what she said that time. Like I don't recognize that one. To where then Dorothy just looks up and says, she says we're fucked. And then it goes back to Omi, yes. And she just has this like, like, yeah, you're right. Just like look at her face like,
Yeah.
It's like, well, how do you know she said that? And Dorothy goes, well, I'm old enough to know when life is coming at you with its pants down. Which, man.
It was hard.
It's like, you should not say that to a group of children, but no, you're Aunt Dorothy, so you can get away with it.
You can get away with it. That may be part of the reason why they didn't want Aunt Dorothy around. Because she's just a little bit vocal, and she doesn't really have a filter. Yep. And they may not want their kids hearing what she has to say. Wow. Did you have anything else, or is that it?
That's all I had.
All right.
And next we're going to do rankings. And as much as we've like gushed about this movie this whole time, now we got to see what that leads to here.
Oh, goodness. It's so hard because it's really kind of a one-off like movie that isn't, well, it is in our preferred genre for this podcast. It is.
Yeah.
It's got creatures. We are down with monsters. It is who we are. It's what we love. However, you know what? I agonized over this today.
Oh, yeah.
Like, how do I rank this movie? How do I rank it when it's just kind of in its own world?
Yeah.
So I'm going to come in with a solid 8.1.
Okay. Nice.
And that's where I'm going to leave it.
Not bad.
And now I'm dying to know, Pake. Dying to know where it lands on your radar.
All right. Well, to buy time. No, I'm kidding.
But that's what we do.
But yeah, no, just to give some like idea, because again, even though these points don't, like these rankings don't matter at all, really, in the grand scheme of things, I still like to try to justify where I put things for some reason. I don't know. But yeah, no, I think because it's a super funny movie. Some of the creepy stuff is real creepy. The cast is just excellent.
Yes.
And so I have a good time with it. But there are still some like continuity things and like other things that are like, like this doesn't really add up here. They wouldn't do that. Or, but what about that? So putting it all into the blender, all of those little things together, spin it around a little bit. I land on an 8.4. So.
Woo! So not too far.
Yeah.
Not too far out of the realm of where I was. Mm-hmm. And I think that's okay.
Yeah.
I think I'm good with it. I can stand by my 8.1.
Yes. It's a very good movie. It is very good.
It is.
And I love it. And I should probably be watching it like every December, and I don't know why I don't. It should be on my Christmas movie rotation, and it probably will be from now on.
I feel like it has to be the extended version, though. Mm. You have to have those extra scenes.
I know, but you don't get like an extended version. I wish you could. Because like that, I have to go in and watch the like deleted and extended scenes and the bonus features.
I feel like we need those though. I feel like they need to be put back in.
I know you need movies. I think I talked about this when I covered, which I'll do this in the, shout outs and soon. But I got to cover Scott Pilgrim on Panels to Pixels recently, and yeah, like I think I brought it up on there because I also did the same thing. I watched all the the deleted and extended scenes and stuff after watching the movie. And I was like, why can't we get, because I get it for the theatrical version, but like, why can't we choose to watch a version of the movie that they just throw all those back in there? Like a director's cut that you can just like choose to watch or not on the DVD. Like just put all the deleted and extended scenes in there anyway. Because most of it adds to the story.
Yes.
All right, Daphne, it is time to get to some feedback for this week. And we have quite a bit of feedback, which I am excited about. It's a holiday miracle.
It's always great when we get feedback from everyone. And this week, you're right, we do have quite a bit of feedback.
Mm-hmm. We've got feedback to, messages on Facebook. And then we have 3 voicemails to get to. Should have been 4. Ben gave you homework last week. I'm just going to give him a hard time. I love you, Ben. It's okay. He did watch the movie. I know that. He just failed on the feedback part of it. But you know what? That's okay. It doesn't have to come this week. You can send it next week. I'll give you an extension on your homework. Anytime you want to tell us. Nah, again, just messing with you, Ben. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into that.
All right.
Let's go ahead and go with our messages on Facebook. And this first one, let's go ahead and go to this one from Julie. And this one's actually about San Andreas, so we're kicking it back another week, but that's all right. And she says, this movie is our favorite. Jenna and I, which I think you might know this person. Okay.
I do. Jenna is her daughter.
She says, Jenna and I must have seen it, except for the first 15 minutes, at least 30 times. We finally caught the beginning, which was so anticlimactic. The predictability and the overacting and the obvious CGI and bad decision-making, the best.
Thank you, Julie, for sending that in. Really appreciate it. I'm glad that you and Jenna really enjoyed that movie, and I hope that in the future there are other movies that we cover on the podcast that you're interested in, and you can let us know what you think of those.
Yeah. Always love hearing from anyone and everyone.
Definitely.
All right. You want to take this next one, Daphne?
Sure. This next one is from our good friend Derek, and he says, I just watched Krampus at the weekend. For the first 30 minutes, I just hoped the deaths would start because most of the characters were awful. I wish they'd either lean into the horror or humor more. It was just okay. Not great, not terrible. I was hoping to add it to my holiday horror playlist. I guess I'll have to wait for someone else to nail a great holiday horror.
All right. Thanks for your feedback. Hey, not everything is going to be like a hit or a miss. Like you said, you didn't hate it, but it's not going to be a great for you, and that's okay. Because you bring up a good point. Like, I don't know if there's any other really good, like, Christmas horror movies that I can think of off the top of my head that are, like, really good. I mean, most of them are good because they're just, like, ridiculous. Like Black Santa or, what is it, Santa Sleighs? Or but yeah.
We'll have to think long and hard next year when we pick our Christmas holiday movie to cover.
I kind of have an idea what I'd want to do, but it would require us kind of bending our genres a little bit, but we'll see. We got a full year to get there, so.
And you know what? We can bend those just as much as we want to.
Yeah, we can. This is our podcast, so we do what we want.
Yes, we can.
All right, let's go ahead and get to those voicemails. This first one comes from Sherry.
All right, let's hear what Sherry had to say.
Hi, Daphne and Pate. This is Sherry, and you might know me as Iggy's mom in the ferret world. But I wanted to send in some feedback on the Krampus movie. I'm a huge fan of the Krampus mythology and lore. And so I was really excited that they were going to do a movie about it. I had been waiting for something like that for a while. And finding out, too, that Dougherty was involved. I was a big fan of Trick or Treat, so I kind of had a feeling that it was going to be really awesome when I first heard about it because of his involvement. I'd have to say, really, my favorite thing about the movie, probably the fact that they used all real puppets, and for the most part, it's in real puppeteering. Some of the effects were obviously CGI, like the creepy little cookie guys. Those guys still freak me out. They're so ridiculous, but also like they were looking right into my nightmares. Because a lot of Christmas things, they really do sort of just border right on that line of being whimsical and cute and being downright terrifying. And the little gingerbread guys were done with CGI, but I do think all of the other effects in the movie that were done using practical effects, it's like all the creatures in the attic. My favorite was definitely the spooky, like, angel doll that kind of like flies down and is attacking everybody. So creative and interesting. And the big gesture thing. And even the Krampus himself was done with all real effects instead of with CGI. And I just feel like we don't see enough of that really in movies. I actually just recently rewatched it, and it still kind of holds up. And I think when you see movies where the directors really put that effort in to use real puppets and real props, that it definitely makes a difference. And it just makes for an all-around, just sort of timeless, fun movie. In many ways, this film reminds me of something like Gremlins from back in the day, where it's like a horror comedy set at Christmas time. So I really, really love it. Also, the score. I do have the soundtrack to it, and the score is really, really good. So anyone who's a fan of the movie should definitely check that out. It definitely works on its own. And I think that the acting it's cheesy, goofy horror movie acting on purpose. But I think, other than the fact that it does stray from the Krampus, it's almost like he was trying to create a Krampus cinematic universe. Which I hope he, successfully does, but I haven't heard anything about it coming back to theaters, although not that anything's coming back to theaters anytime soon, but I don't know that ever took off. But it does vary a bit from the original folklore, but it's still just a fantastic film. And anyone who's interested in it, anyone who's watched it, I strongly encourage you to do a little research on your own into the Krampus mythology and the folklore and some of the Krampus events that might come up in your town. I think we should definitely, as a society, I really want to see us just bring Krampus into the sort of the holiday tradition every year. So yeah, anyone who's listening, do some research on it. It's really, I guess it depends on your idea of fun. I think it's really fun, but even if you're not super into the folklore, it is a good, holiday movie. I think just in the spirit of something like Gremlins or any other old puppet movie, that it's just practical effects and nostalgia and really, really ghoulish and eerie. The aesthetic is fantastic. I absolutely love it. So I hope you guys are having a wonderful night, and happy solstice, Merry Yule, and happy Merry Christmas, and whatever else.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Sherry. Love hearing from you. And you brought up some great stuff as far as while you were talking, I was listening to that. I did add the Krampus score and soundtrack to my Christmas playlist on Spotify. And then, I love your talk about, we've brought it up on this podcast quite a few times before about practical effects versus CGI and how that's the reason that 1993's Jurassic Park still holds up perfectly to this day, is because all of those practical effects.
Exactly. We have talked about it. The fact that the CGI over time continues to grow and change, capabilities grow and change. And those earlier movies that started with CGI, it's just not holding up quite as well. Those practical effects are the way to go. And it's great to see movies like Krampus that came out 5 years ago relying on that when they bring it to the screen.
It'll help it stand the test of time a lot longer.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sherry. Our next feedback is from Damien. So let's hear what Damien had to say.
Hey, Daphne and Pake, it's Damien. Just wanted to leave some feedback for Krampus. Overall, I enjoyed it. This is my first time watching the movie, actually. Love the opening credit sequence of the craziness at the Macho Mart. It reminded me of Black Friday sales fiascos at Walmart we would hear about years ago before they put all the limits on how many people could get in first thing. So I think that was pretty intentional when the directors filmed that piece there. Love the effects of the cold and ice and frozen houses in the neighborhood. That was pretty scary, I think. Added definite tensity to the entire situation. They even used it on the Legendary and Universal logos in the very beginning of the movie, before the credit sequence. That was pretty clever. The family dinner scene with the fight breaking out felt like an homage to Home Alone. I don't know if you guys got the same feeling. But that was a reminder of that there. My favorite scene was the fight in the attic with the possessed toys. That was eerie, intense, and that angel was pretty terrifying. But I'm happy that the parents won that battle, at least. In the end, they don't win.
Or do they?
There were a few things I didn't get in the movie. The snowmen appearing. I kind of thought it had to do with every time somebody was taken. But I didn't know who the first snowman was for. I don't know if that was supposed to be the girl's boyfriend. I don't know. But anyway, then they seemed like to be showing up every time somebody was taken. And that one definitely was supposed to be Howie. I know that. Howie Jr. rather. So anyway, and also Krampus couldn't use the chimney, but the elves could break right in. So I didn't really get that either. I think that was a bit of a plot hole. And the ending with the eternity and the snow globe. I don't know how I felt about that. It was okay, I suppose. I mean, I'm glad it wasn't just a dream, but anyway, I don't know. Ending was kind of meh to me. And I just wanted to end with my favorite line in the movie was from Howard Sr. Honey, I just got my ass kicked by a bunch of Christmas cookies. So trust me when I say I can take it. I think that says it all with this movie here. Anyway, hope you guys have a Merry Christmas, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Damien.
Awesome. Thank you. Merry Christmas to you as well. And yeah, so hopefully after listening to this, you can maybe get some new kind of perspectives on the possibilities of that ending, and let us know if that changes the way that you think about some stuff.
Yeah, Pake has some really interesting points that he brought up that made me feel better about the ending. So I'm going, honestly, with his version of how it ended. Made me feel a little bit better. Maybe they're not living in the snow globes. It's more of kind of his way of being... It's like his portal to see what they're doing to make sure they're towing the line.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's what I like to think now.
I like that one. More happy. All right. We have one more call, and kind of goes without saying in this group that it's not a podcast without a voicemail from Steve Brown. So
exactly.
See what Steve has to say.
All right.
Hey, Pake and Daphne, this is Steve. This is for Krampus. And I didn't watch the movie because reasons, and but I wanted to send a message and say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And I hope everyone listening stays safe and stays well. And I pray that hopefully you can spend a little time with your families this year. I am, so hopefully everyone can do that. And I will talk to you later.
All right. Well, thank you, Steve. And if you do get around to watching it, still call in and let us know. We always appreciate it.
I was wondering what Steve would think of this movie. It's one of those ones that I feel like he might like some of the campy humor, but I'm not sure. So, Steve, if you do check it out, we definitely want to hear what you think about it.
You and Ben can both have homework of still getting it to us later.
Yes. Homework is assigned.
Yes. All right, awesome. And speaking of this podcast universe that we live in, I'll go ahead and give a couple shout outs of some other places that you can hear me and other people in this podcast universe. And of course, as always, I say every week, check out Strange Indeed. Great podcast over there. I've been doing a couple different shows over there. And now Rima is covering the CBS All Access show, The Stand, with our friend Ben. But if you listen to episode 2, that'll be coming up later this next week, I will be on that one. I'll be popping in for a couple of episodes throughout the season. So I'm excited about that. So definitely check that out. It'll be a lot of fun. And then I did plug it a little bit last week, but again, it is out now. So if you have not listened to it, go over to Panels to Pixels, and you can hear me, Steve, and Ben have a little round table episode where we talk about Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which is my favorite movie of all time. And we had a blast just nerding out and quoting that movie and having a fun time. So check that out as well.
Yes, we've talked about this before. Pake loves that movie, and I've actually listened to this podcast. It is so much fun to listen to Steve moderate a panel between Ben and Pake about this movie, and it's fun to listen to determine which person, either Pake or Ben, is the real trivia king. when it comes to Scott Pilgrim versus the World. As you may remember last week, Ben conceded that Pake was probably the king of the trivia for Scott Pilgrim. But, give it a listen and make your own determination.
Yeah. But if you pick Ben over me, don't tell me, because I'll be sad. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. All right. And then, as far as other podcasts and what's coming up next, Daphne, why don't you fill everybody in what is coming up next week here on Run for Your Lives?
All right. Well, next week, we'll be launching our first episode of 2021. And it will cover a movie called Greenland, which is an American disaster film directed by Rick Romanois. It was released on December 18th, 2020. This is a deep one that Pake and I both really connected with, and we're looking forward to sharing it as our first episode of 2021.
Absolutely. I do. It is a newer movie, so your best bet is to find it. It's going to be on like all the video on demand kind of stuff, Amazon Prime and Vudu and whatever else you use there. So yeah, I would highly recommend buying or renting this movie and checking it out. It is great. I really do think it was an awesome movie. And of course, it's good to get Gerard Butler back in a good action lead role with some really good like family storytelling and stuff too. I had a blast with this movie.
Yeah, me too. It's one that we have been excited to bring to you. So we're excited to hear what you may think of it if you go ahead and give the movie a watch and then listen to the podcast. Or if you want to listen to us first and get a little spoiled or a lot spoiled.
A lot of spoiled.
Go ahead and listen to our podcast. It will be out at the usual time and day of the week, which is usually Friday nights around 8 o'clock Eastern time.
Awesome. And so, yeah, if you want to send any kind of feedback or thoughts on Greenland coming up this next week, or Krampus this episode, or any other movie that we've covered, or any movie you want us to cover, you can reach out to us Facebook at facebook.com/runforyourlivespodcast. You can email us at runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. Hit us up on Twitter at RFYL Podcast or Instagram at Run for Your Lives Podcast. And if you're enjoying the show, tell your friends, share the love, send them to any of those social media sites to check us out. Or you can also find our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, Pandora, Stitcher, YouTube, anywhere podcasts are at. We're hanging out there. And
yes, we are.
to make it super easy, you can also just go yourself or send anybody to runforyourlivespodcast.com, and links to all the social media accounts and Spotify or podcast players. They're all there, and makes it easy. And then if you go to Apple Podcasts, make sure to go ahead and leave us a review, give us some 5 stars, show the love. We always appreciate it.
And we have been getting a few reviews and some 5-star reviews, so we really appreciate that.
Yes.
It helps people find us easier, and we appreciate it. We really are excited about movies that we have planned to cover in the next 6 months, so and beyond. So we're just really excited for whatever 2021 brings us.
Yeah. And we got some special stuff planned for the future as well that we're not going to talk about them too much, but you'll see.
You'll see. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And with that, we've reached the end of our episode. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We appreciate it. As always, I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And if you have to run from a horned, anthropomorphic figure and his minions, you better run for your lives. Merry Christmas.
Bye-bye.